Nothing prepared people for a crime that took place in 2006, leaving locals shocked and disgusted. Rumours soon spread that maybe something was lurking in the shadows of Rampart Street, playing on the crumbling mind of a man set on his own destruction. Today, dissectors, we will look at the murder of Addie Hall and subsequent suicide of Zack Bowen. Was it a relationship that was destined for heartbreak, or did something more sinister play a part? Everyone seemed to think that Zack was a regular, nice guy. He was a sergeant in the US Army, gaining many medals for his service to his country. But after witnessing a fellow soldier's sudden death and the murder of a child killed for talking with American soldiers, he began to struggle in his duties. Zack purposefully failed his health and fitness tests so that he'd be sent back home, where his wife was also very sick with hepatitis C. Losing all his health benefits and support, he was discharged, but discovered no matter how far away from the war zone he was, his mind was torturing him, and transitioning back to civilian life was harder than he imagined. Running away from the family life that he knew, he moved out of his home and got himself bar work at a place called Buffers in the French Quarter of New Orleans. He had charm and good looks, so went down well with regulars and tourists to the area. It was while working here that he came across a young, vibrant woman called Addie, who was also bartending in the same area at a bar called the Spotted Cat. It seems that the chemistry between them was instant, and they would often visit each other at work, passing love notes and flirting, leading to a love affair that was fiery to say the least. When Hurricane Katrina tore apart New Orleans, the couple were one of the many that decided to stay and brave the storm, refusing to evacuate. When the power went out, they made their own makeshift stove. They bartered for anything they needed, as well as serving up cocktails for exhausted locals. Addie even gained herself respect in her method of obtaining more security for her neighbourhood after the disaster. She would flash her breasts at passing policemen, and would you believe it? It worked. They began patrolling the area more frequently, keeping residents safe. Zack and Addie were thriving in the now peaceful city, with Addie even telling reporters, "We've been able to see the stars for the first time." Before, this was a 24-hour lit city, and now it's peaceful. But as life started to return to normal, the distraction of the hurricane could no longer hide the cracks already appearing in their relationship. Addie, who was known for her hot temper, was suddenly getting into huge fights with Zack as they began to drink more heavily and take drugs to numb their feelings. Their behaviour became more erratic, and they wouldn't turn up for work for days at a time. Addie was even seen holding a gun to a man while screaming in his face one morning, which eventually got her arrested, and not long after this, Zack was also arrested on a first-time drug charge. By September 2006, their behaviour was so toxic they were evicted from their apartment. Luckily, it didn't take them long to find a new place to live above the city's famous Voodoo spiritual temple at 826 North Rampart Street. But their relationship was so bad by this point, Addie had stopped turning up to work altogether. Both wanted out of the relationship, with Zack telling his friends as such, and Addie talking to the landlord about taking him off the lease as they'd broken up. Maybe if they'd both listened to their gut, their story would have had a different ending. But then, with the added fuel of drugs and alcohol, things took a fatal turn one night as Addie accused Zack of being unfaithful. Something inside him snapped, and it was like he became possessed, no longer the man everyone knew him to be, as he killed Addie in cold blood. At first, no one knew what had happened to Addie, as with her quitting her job, people who knew her seemed to think she was off getting wasted somewhere. But 11 days after her death, Zack was seen pacing back and forth nervously on the roof of Chartres Street garage. His demeanour was anxious and fidgety, when suddenly he leapt to his death. When police arrived at the scene of Zack's suicide, a key, address and suicide note were found wrapped in a plastic bag in one of his pockets. The suicide note had this to say: "This is not accidental. I had to take my own life to pay for the one I took. If you send a patrol car to 826 North Rampart, you will find the dismembered corpse of my girlfriend Addie in the oven, on the stove and in the fridge, and a full signed confession from myself, Zack Bowen. I scared myself not by the action of calmly strangling the woman I've loved for 1.5 years and then desecrating her body, but by my entire lack of remorse. I've known forever how horrible of a person I am, ask anyone, and decided to quit my job and spend the $1,500 cash I had, being happy until I killed myself. So that's what I did. Good food, good drugs, good strippers, good friends, and any loose ends I may have had. I didn't contact any of my family, so that'll explain the shock. Had a fantastic time living out my days. It's just about time now. Shocked, squad cars rushed to the young couple's apartment on Rampart Street, only to be welcomed by a scene that could be taken from any horror film. Spray painted on the walls, Zack had written, "Please call my wife, I love her. I'm a total failure. Look in the oven. Please help me stop the pain." It seems that after strangling Addie, he'd carried her body to the bathtub and began to dismember her, stopping partway through to think about his own actions and deciding he felt nothing. No remorse, no sadness, just empty. He then placed Addie's head and hands in a pot and set them on the stove, with her arms and legs placed on a tray in the oven. At this point, he cooked the body parts, even seasoning them as if he was contemplating eating them, while her torso was stashed away in the refrigerator. There were many rumours that circulated at the time, like he'd cut up carrots and potatoes and put them in the pan with her head and hands, earning him the nickname Katrina Cannibal. At his autopsy, it was discovered that Zack had been self-harming when 28 cigarette burns were found on his body, said to be one for each year of his life. His stomach contents showed no human flesh, so rumours that he'd been chewing on her bones were proven false. Sadly, Addie's remains were in such a bad condition that it took police weeks to verify her identification. What had caused a once charming, charismatic man to become a heartless monster? Many believe it to be mental illness. Others think something played on his delicate mind, twisting him up inside to be a killer. A 2014 study stated that 1 in 4 active members of the military will show signs of a mental health condition needing treatment, with 3 major health concerns. The first is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD for short. Anything from combat, disasters or sexual assault can lead to this, with symptoms being sleeping issues, anger, nightmares, anxiety, and abuse of drugs and alcohol. Then we have depression, which many often think is just a sense of sadness or feeling low. Clinical depression is so bad it can affect your everyday life, making you not want to leave the house or have the energy for things like hygiene, eating, and talking with family and friends. It is not something you can get over on your own. And lastly, traumatic brain injury, TBI for short. While in combat, people may experience a body or head injury that can cause severe headaches, memory problems, mood swings, fatigue and drowsiness. Without proper treatment, this condition can get much worse over time. It is strongly believed that Zack was suffering from PTSD, which would explain why his behaviour was becoming more erratic, as well as the drinking and drug problem. Did his volatile relationship with Addie tip him over the edge and make him commit murder? This is a very strong possibility, as he didn't seek out any help. So maybe a switch flipped in his head, making him lose control and becoming the emotionless killer. It really is heartbreaking to think about. Now, while mental illness might well be the truth behind Zack's actions, there are many who think it is something much more sinister, that a military man could never commit such a heinous crime. Some even suggested that he was possessed by an evil spirit, as their apartment was directly above a voodoo temple. But this seems a little unfair, as the owner of this establishment, Priestess Miriam Chamini, is well respected in the community and would never allow such an entity to take up residence at her place. Also, voodoo gets a lot of bad press, when generally it is used for good, like spiritual healing. But there are others who claim something has been living in that property for decades, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the ideal time to possess a troubled soul. People have witnessed all kinds of paranormal things, like a sense of unseen eyes watching them as they pass by, an all-consuming feeling of foreboding and darkness, as well as disembodied whispers and shadows inside the property and outside in the street. Are they true? Locals certainly seem to think so, and the building is gaining notoriety as one of the most haunted properties in New Orleans. Paranormal researchers have even taken an interest, with one group called Paranormal Lockdown actually talking with a spirit trapped inside. Shockingly, it doesn't appear to be Addie or Zack, but a young slave boy who has lingered here for years, witnessing the brutal murder. The conversation went as so. Is anyone there? Died? Did something bad happen in this room? Think I'm trapped? And then it got even more alarming as the spirits also said, strangled to death, and please don't hurt her. While the kitchen and bathroom have been described as having a dark, eerie atmosphere, as if the anger and pain still echoes around the rooms, the attic space where the young boy is believed to reside is light and calm. So with people seeing things from the street and things being no better inside the property, what are your thoughts on what made this young man snap? Was he struggling from trauma, or was he influenced by something with darker desires? My honest opinion is that he was running away from life, away from the trauma he survived, a sick wife, and when his new beginnings started to fall apart, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. I just wish he had got help from professionals. If there is something, though, lingering inside the property, wanting to cause harm, Zack's state of mind certainly would have made it so easy to manipulate him. Whatever the case, hopefully Addie and Zack are in peace now. If anyone watching this video is suffering right now, either from the topics mentioned today or another situation which has you feeling lost, confused and defeated, I have put contact information in a link below that will put you in touch with someone who can offer you help and support. You're not alone, my friends. If you enjoyed today's video, then please hit like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on new episodes of The Paranormal. Until next time, dissectors, stay safe out there.